were you knocked over by the proverbial, to use that phrase again, feather when NASCAR made the announcement that the Confederate flag was going to be banned from all of their events?
Well, once Bubba Wallace came out on Sunday and discussed that, the word was pretty quick that NASCAR was going to follow up on officially trying to ban the flag from its events. Now, back in 2015, it stopped allowing the flag's use in any official capacity. And then it asked fans to refrain from bringing the flag. So this wasn't a complete sea change. This is sort of just a bolder statement. And in reality, who knows what it really means? How are you going to enforce this? As we know, the flag, obviously you can go see a flag getting flown in an infield or a campground, and you could go and see that. And that Confederate flag is on bumper stickers and on license plate holders and on T-shirts and hats, and it's in a lot of places. So I think it's a very big symbolic step for NASCAR, but it is one that may be kind of more symbolic than anything else, and it is one that they've been moving towards in recent years.
Okay, so what do you think happens now, Dan? What do you think happens here? I know you know, I saw your comment yesterday. I kind of tagged onto it with what Jimmy Johnson had to say on the show yesterday, but what do you think happens next here, brother?
Well, I think the interview you did with Jimmy Johnson was very interesting and very important, and I think the way that the flag peters out at these races is if the drivers choose to be extremely vocal in supporting getting rid of it, because it's no NASCAR fan cares about the NASCAR hierarchy, what the president of NASCAR thinks. Same way if Roger Goodell told NFL fans to do something, probably more would do the opposite. But if the drivers who have the connection with the fans are unified on this, and we'll see if they are or what they actually believe on it, and you can change kind of the mindset of the track where it's like, that's not really cool to bring anymore, and it sort of becomes a group thing, then that becomes a much bigger deal. Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and those guys are saying something, it carries a lot more weight than if Roger Goodell does. And that's the same way in NASCAR. So, if Jimmy Johnson and all of the drivers are saying, if you fly that flag, don't root for me. If you fly that flag, you're hurting our sport. You're hurting the future of our business to see whether we can keep this thing going. NASCAR is not on the best of business trends anyway. And try to use their ability to connect with fans to just explain that we're not trying to take something away from you or whatever they want. I don't know how they want to put it, but it's more about not being rude, being more welcoming, trying to create more fans, like rethink how you feel about this flag. I think that's when you could have significant impact. So what Jimmy said on your show, and I wasn't surprised Jimmy said that, but it was significant because you haven't heard through the years this overwhelming support from drivers willing to step out and eventually go against some segment of their fan base. Will they be that aggressive? I think that's going to be the next step in how important this goes.
Well, you, if I'm not mistaken, about a decade plus ago, brought this issue up to as many drivers as you could, and Junior was the only one who would address it when you spoke to them?
Yeah, I looked that story up last night. I remembered it, but I hadn't looked at it in a long time. 2006, I went and, I covered some NASCAR. And, if you're not from the South, I've spent a lot of time in the South, but if you're not from the South, you drive onto a track and in a lot of these tracks, certainly in the South. And back then, there were so many flags. And it's jarring. And, you just go, wow, like I didn't know it would be this many flags in one spot. And so we decided to kind of ask around. I said, what do you think? Like, NASCAR had taken a position already that they really weren't in favor of this and made much of a statement. But clearly, some people are going to look at it and say, this is not, I don't want to be a part of this. Or, you're an African-American family and you pull up to the infield, you say, I'm going the other direction. What's your opinion of this? Why do you think this is appropriate? Do you think this is welcoming? And literally every single driver, every single team denied comment or told me if I even ask at a group session, it'll be shut down and they'll do this. I mean, it was aggressively opposed to even discussing this. Dale Earnhardt Jr., to his credit, did. He was the only one who was willing to talk about it. And, I mean, that was about 40 drivers at the time. And that to me is how far this has come, because you now see in 14 years, not only are they discussing it, a lot of them are discussing it, pretty openly with some depth, with some understanding of I need to learn more about this. I don't expect every NASCAR driver to be up on every single issue. But the openness to it, I think, is a complete sea change, because you went from like, why are you asking this question? Hell no, we're not talking about this, to I imagine you can get almost any NASCAR driver on your show today to discuss it. And that's a big change in those 14 years.